You're listening to Get to Know World of Warships, a podcast created by Boggzy and Synpax.
Well, you guys, I'm very excited. I have a very special guest today, and I also have a very special guest host. Borla, how are you?
Good. How are you doing this morning, Boggzy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I got like 4 hours of sleep, and I haven't had coffee, so I am just in my best form right now. Yeah. But,
awesome. Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. Outside of, my mom, you are my number one choice of guest hosts. So I'm still trying to get her on. She's busy. You know how that is. So, I'm really excited. I have a very, very special guest here. He is a community contributor. He's a Twitch streamer. He's a long-standing figurehead in the World of Warships community. He's very well known. And I think he's going to have some really, really, really unique perspective on how the game is going. So, please, everybody, say hello to Flambass. Hello, Flambass.
Yo, I guess we can immediately share one thing together.
What's that?
I didn't have much sleep either. Which is when you asked me how I feel, I was like, interesting, tough question.
Right. The first question right out of the gate is always the hardest. It's, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm so excited to be here. No, I'm serious. I'm doing good.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. Obviously, this is you said this is your day off, so I appreciate you taking your day off from World of Warships to come talk about World of Warships. That's what a hero would do.
Yeah. It's a day off from streaming. That's what I tell people.
Yeah,
because
right.
I have a bunch of like IRL family and stuff. That's like they know by now that Tuesday is my day off.
Uh-huh.
And then like, oh, come for lunch or do this or do that. I'm like, I'm gonna have to stop saying that it's my day off. It's my day off from one of the jobs. It's like, I don't stream. I don't stream on Tuesday. I still have plenty of work to do. But yeah.
The work never stops. Well,
never did.
Let's get right into it because I wanna try and get through all this and get you out of here as quick as possible. So, you are a community contributor. You've been one of, if I want to say, I sort of keep the number of the top streamers of World of Warships on one hand. There's you, there's Flamu, there's Mr. Gibbons, there's a handful of others who, routinely can break into the thousands of viewers at any given time. You're basically a figurehead of that. And because of that, you're really well known in the community. So I want to just get a real quick idea of how you got started playing World of Warships, how you got started into streaming World of Warships, and I suppose then we'll just sort of move on after we figure out where you're at now.
Okay. This is literally the question of where do I start? It's basically a story. I'll try to keep it as short and as quick as possible. I've been long time ago. I met a friend that told me about tanks and that there's this game called World of Tanks. And I was a massive World War II fan. I even studied philosophy and history. So I was ready to jump in. So I played World of Tanks a bit. I got decently good. And I wanted to take it to the next level. I wanted to go, the pro competitive gaming and the entire world of that kind of esports. I was surrounded by a lot of good players, but not enough serious players to take it to the next level. The people who were interested were not good enough. The people who were good enough were not interested enough. Yeah, you're gonna hear a bit of meowing in the background. Sorry about that.
That's good. It's okay.
The little guy. So when I heard the World of Warships is coming out, being a massive World War II fan, when it comes to weaponry and technology and all of that, I was ready to jump in on that game as well, with a slight difference that I said to myself, if World of Warships is going to take the same steps, the same route, if it's going to have the same future as World of Tanks did at a time, and World of Tanks was like huge at a time.
Yeah.
I want to be there. This is my ticket. This is my way in. I was kind of a bit late on the whole World of Tanks, and at first I was just playing it for fun. But World of Warships, it's a clean slate, similar mechanics, and I'm sure I'm going to be able to do a lot better. So very, very early from the start, I started looking into improving myself, into cracking the game, and looking for a good competitive clan. That's when I stumbled. I don't know where or how, because I'm not a good, Reddit or blogs or forum kind of guy. I'm still a potato in those regards. So I can't really tell you for sure how I stumbled upon it, but I saw that Omni was recruiting, and they seemed like the most serious of the bunch, which I can definitely confirm they were. So I applied. They accepted me after like few weeks, months, I don't know, of trial and playing with people. And I spent the next, well, I honestly don't know how long, but it was pretty long in there. And they were already involved in like unofficial World of Warships competitive training, clan battles, and stuff like that before any of that was even in the game. So I was very, very early in the game involved in competitive gaming, and I really wanted to be one of the best. It's always hard to say that you're going to be the best, especially in a game like this, where it's not a solo, a single player game. It's a team game.
Sure.
It's very hard for just one guy to carry everybody else. If not everybody pulls the weight, there's just so much you can do. So I wanted to be one of the best, and I wanted to be in the team of one of the best. And at the time, Omni was definitely the place. We were teaching each other, we were learning, we were spending countless hours on strategy, trainings, playing with other teams. And slowly but surely, we gained a reputation of being, well, I won't say unbeatable, but one of the best clans. And then the King of the Sea happened. I got my first chance to really compete, kind of officially, even though that was still unofficial tournament at the time, for like a big title. And I had the privilege of being in a team of also good players, led by a good field commander. Strangers, I'm sure you know the guy. And I had fortune of being put on the spot where if I do something and it works, we might turn the tide of the game, which was a decisive game, which was on, I believe, Trap, the whole emote thingy about the island in the middle of the B cap, yada yada. And I made a call that turned the tide of the entire game. We managed to win, and we proceeded to win the entire tournament. And that's where it kind of kicked off, that people started knowing about me and who I am, even though at the time I had no intentions of streaming or YouTubing or anything like that. I just wanted to compete. I just wanted to be in the pro scene, and I enjoyed the living crap out of it. And then the tournaments kept coming, and we kept owning, and the clan battles and the trainings and stuff like that. People get to know you, and in the same time, the story IRL was also kind of developing. I was getting close to being done with university. In fact, I was at one point, of course, done with the university. Now I had to do the internship, and like, this is such a huge thing that it's kind of hard to put it into small details. But to make you kind of understand, I've been following the YouTube scene for a bit, and I've seen that a lot of people are getting, kind of popular, and people want to watch and follow them, that do the same stuff that I do without a camera. Because if I'm on the camera or without a camera, I'm still goofy and screwing around and making jokes and laughing and doing everything that I do on stream, I do off stream as well.
Right.
So I got an idea. It's like, I should probably do this. But I had a major, like a handbrake that was always pulling me back, which was, it's too late. You should have started 2 years ago. If you started 2 years ago, you would have been somewhere now, which is true, but you can't go back in time. And then I kept saying that for a few years. And then it all kind of collapsed in the same time when we started kicking and taking tournaments. People started knowing you. They wanted to play with you. They wanted to learn from you. And in the same time, in terms of IRL, I was done with university. I was doing an internship, and I realized just how miserable my life is going to be if I take the same footsteps that everybody else takes, because we are seriously underpaid here. Um, and people might come to Croatia and say, "Oh, but that's not expensive." Sure, it's not expensive if you have that amount of paycheck every month. But if you have 5 times less, then that's significantly more expensive. Um, and everything kind of formed into one decision, which was the biggest decision of my life, where I decided to put basically my entire future kind of on hold, gamble a bit, and try to get support from my parents and my girlfriend, and be like, I gotta do this. I gotta try. I think I got what it takes. I think I got what people want to be a part of simply by watching others. If I don't take this leap, if I don't, I will eat myself alive. Like, I will not be able to live with myself knowing that I didn't try. Um, and it was a really, really tough moment in life because you're already, burning your 20s. You still don't have a job. You have nothing to back yourself up. It was a really, really risky and a kind of a problematic part of my life when I did this decision. And Jesus, it was the best decision of my life.
That's great to hear.
It took a couple of months. I said to my parents, like, you got to understand one thing, though. If I do this, we're not going to see results immediately. My estimate is it's going to take 2 years until I can see, is this worth it or not. It took 2 months. It took 2 months for me to realize that this is going to have the future, and it just spiraled out of control. It just started like, just the success and the people and everything. It was amazing. It was an amazing journey.
Right.
And
well, if I could, I know later and we want to talk to you about some of the other details about the business side of it. But one of the things I remember when I started the game was when I transitioned from playing it casually to wanting to get into competitive and get better. Everybody told me, watch Flambass, watch Flammu, look for the YouTube videos, look for them on Twitch. Like today, how much of your balance of time is spent still doing some competitive versus creating content?
Oh, that part changed a lot. My initial idea when I decided to get into the streaming and YouTubing was, besides my own character, which I was hoping that it was going to be something that people are going to like and enjoy. The second part, one of the main reasons, is I wanted to be the competitive player that you get to directly see how it feels, how it looks like, and how it sounds to be a very successful competitive player. When you cast a tournament, you usually don't get to hear what they're talking to each other. You don't get to see them. You just get to see what they do. And you usually don't see it from a first person point of view. You get to see their ships or something like that. I wanted to be that guy that's going to step into competitive, which I was already a part of, and then show the people exactly what it's like, because I haven't seen that yet anywhere. But then you run into problems that your teams and the other players that you play with, you are kind of starting to be, you're not exactly a handicap, especially if you're a really good player. You can still carry far more, but you're starting to decrease the value of the team because the edge that they have, the surprise factor, the tactics, all the secret stuff that only you guys know is now going out to the world. And then you start having this nasty problem. Can your team do without you? And are you willing to throw it away for something like streaming, or are you going to put streaming aside and just do competitive? And then we know how everything eventually happened. But when we were competing, to answer your question like directly, we were training all the time, like literally. Even in World of Tanks before that, we were spending our nights in front of PCs and staring at the maps, drawing, making sure that we know the range, the duration, the angles, the spots, the places. We were studying it like you would study math in school. It was huge amount of dedication. Some people think that it might be easy. It's not. If you want to be, you can play the game. That's easy. But how successful are you going to be and serious? Oh, that's a whole nother matter. And we wanted to be the best. I was not going to accept anything below being the best because I kind of knew that my shot with World of Tanks has slipped by, and I've really tried, but I just couldn't get in touch with the people that were both good and serious enough. And the people that were good and serious enough were much better than me, because I had a lot of games where I didn't care about my stats.
I think
Yeah,
we all have that period, the
yes.
red years, I think we call it, right? Or the red
Yeah,
months?
it took me a bit too long, I would say, at the beginning. And then eventually you just can't influence your stats enough, and you don't get the chance to prove yourself without having the stats first, which is why we have a lot of rerolls and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so but then in ships, I was just immediately, let's go. And then now, when I am not competing anymore, I don't have to spend that time off stream doing. I just play the game. I play the game, and I deal with, providing ship builds to my moderator so that I can upload it, and talking to Wargaming. We're talking about balancing the ships and the game and stuff, but the whole competitive, I don't do that anymore.
Okay, I'm really glad that you very nicely segued us into sort of talking about balancing and wargaming and whatnot, because we're definitely going to go there. But before we take a break, we'll probably take a break here in the next 5-10 minutes. There's a specific boundary. There's a line in the sand that you sort of touched on, which is the notion of playing a game for fun, and then there's playing a game for a living. And it's a rare thing for folks that get to essentially play a game for a living. So I kind of want you to talk about, if you will, a little bit about when you started realizing that if you want to play a game for a living, you sort of have to make sacrifices in other areas, like competitive, for example, like you mentioned. And when did it start to not be fun for you all the time? Do you remember a specific moment even when you sort of went, "Ugh, I really don't want to play this anymore, but this is my job now"? Do you remember when that first happened?
I remember when that moment happened for World of Tanks, which is funny because that was like God knows how long ago. But I don't remember when that actually happened for World of Warships. For World of Tanks, it happened when one of the first campaigns came out, and you could. It was divided in 4 huge segments, and it was insane amount of grind that was required. And the final tank was a tier 10, object 2-6 something, I don't know. It was a combination.
Yeah.
Could be. It was like a heavy tank in a body of a medium, but still having the armor of a heavy. It was a really strong thing that I really wanted to get. I got through 3.5 steps out of 4 when I completely burned out. I was done. And it didn't help the Wargaming's way of dealing with things, which is back in the day, they didn't exactly have translators. Their translation of their own language to English was horrible. You literally had missions which were completely misplaced. The mission is telling you to, I don't know, do some spotting and an X amount of kills, and the mission is actually capped 3 times or something like that. It's completely different. And then you complete the mission after 72 attempts, like a madman, and then the mission simply doesn't get fulfilled. You write a ticket, and then they tell you that basically, essentially, you're an idiot. I mean, not exactly, but you're an idiot because that's not the mission. This is the mission. And then you try to tell them, how the hell am I supposed to know that? This is what you wrote. Yeah, but that's wrong. I mean, clearly it's wrong. But it's not my fault.
Right.
I've done what was written, what you asked of me.
Right.
So could you at least, I don't know, make it that this mission is now complete and then you fix your problem? No. So sometimes I had to do like 3-4 missions over and over because they kept changing the text and stuff. So I didn't have really the best opinion and the relationship with them. So when I was invited into the community contributor program in World of Warships, I told Conway immediately. I'm sure he won't mind me saying his name because everybody knows Mr. Conway.
Yeah.
I told him, "Are you sure?" He's like, "What do you mean?"
Are you sure?
I was like, "Are you sure that you want to do this? Because I will say what I think. I'll
Right.
try to be as polite as I can. But if I don't like something you do, I will not lie about it." And he was like, "No, it's fine. Just don't go Fosh." I'm sure you guys know what that guy did. Sir Fosh in World of Tanks. That was like a big.
Oh yeah,
Big-
World of Tanks. He was like big with circumflexes and jingles and
He still is. He still streams. He's still, I think, a big World of Tanks guy. It's just that he had a video where he kind of lost his mind because one of the tanks was super unbalanced, and then he started giving out direct names. And that like, don't do that. That's pretty much what I try to say. Everything else is fine. It's just, you can't just target people like that and stuff like that. And I had the privilege of meeting Fosh. He looks like a great guy. It's just that, it's always forever going to be known as a don't do Fosh or something like that.
You never go full Fosh, basically.
Yeah, you never go full Fosh with war games.
Fair enough. Well, look,
so before we get into the
yeah. Go ahead, Borla.
Yeah, before we get into the break, I have one. When Boggzy came up to me or talked to me last week and asked if I wanted to participate in this Flambass, I had something that I told him I had to ask you, and I promised I would ask it politely, but I have to have the answer. What is your favorite map? What is your favorite map? Why is it Two Brothers? And are you going to apologize for all the potatoes that have ruined my games on Two Brothers by charging through the middle and dying?
Okay, so this is the funny part, but my favorite map used to be Two Brothers long before I ever stepped foot or a keel in the middle channel. So Two Brothers was simply the map which I happened to have the most fun and best games. Whether I was fighting on the left side, whether I was fighting on the right side, whether I was the one pushing or kiting, defending or attacking, I always seemed to have a lot of fun on that map, and I really enjoyed it. And I got, relatively good at it. You know where you have to go, you knew the angles, blah, blah, blah. But then you took a look at the mini-map and you realize that there's more to that map than you're actually doing. There's this channel in the middle that nobody goes through, and it's a suicide. But people are expecting you to do crazy things on Twitch in the YouTube videos, and they expect you to get away with it because you're that good, right? So one day I was streaming, and I had a middle spawn. I think I was in a destroyer. I had a hydro, I had a smoke, I was decently armed with torpedoes and guns. I took a look at the matchmaking. There was no carriers, there was no radars, there was nothing that could stop me in a 1v1. And I decided, I'm going to try something, chat, and we'll see if this is going to work. I went through the middle, I kicked ass, we got a bunch of kills, a bunch of damage, with the caps, the everything, and everybody was like, oh my god! And then the if I can say, the shit show started, because now everybody wanted to do this. And the big difference between me doing it and other people doing it is a lot of people might not be aware that it's not the best ship they're in, and there might be a good counter for their ship. You don't take any ship down the middle under any circumstances, and it's certainly not a mid-rush. It's a mid-push. It's a mid-push-pull kind of tactic. There's multiple ways that you can make that tactic work, but it very rarely results successfully if you just rush like a YOLO and you go straight up into the enemy spawn, because the enemy is just going to turn around and kill you. And you're going to be like, yeah, that was fun. I don't know about that, bro.
So you're admitting that this is all your fault. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
That's all I wanted.
World of Warships. Okay. It's all Flambass's fault for all those guys going through the middle on Two Brothers.
Fair enough.
Well,
fair enough.
Let's do this. We're going to take a quick break so that I can run a clearly not satirical ad break. And when we come back, we're going to have Flambass do something very specific. we're going to, as many of you may know, we're actually recording this on November 3rd, 2020, which happens to be the day of the American presidential election. What you don't know is that I, and just about everybody else, wrote in the name Flambass into our ballots. So when Flambass gets announced tonight as the surprise dark horse winner of the American presidential election, they're not going to swear him in on a Bible. They're going to swear him in on a copy of World of Warships, and they're going to have one request, which is you have to sink a ship. You have to remove a ship from the game, Flambass, and I'm going to ask you to do that when we come back here on Get to Know World of Warships. At Mikasa Cruises, bringing people closer has been our legacy for over 5 years. Nothing builds relationships with loved ones more than tiny guns with lots of daka-daka. Mikasa Cruises, because this beautiful game is better experienced together at Tier 2. Well, we are back, and if for some reason you're joining us halfway through, you're an idiot. But beyond that, we're here talking with Flambass. Flambass has very generously gifted some of his day off to come talk with us about shooty pixel boats. So before the break, we asked Flambass to sink a ship. Now, Mr. President, Mr. President Flambass, or is it just President Bass? I'm not sure. What's it going to be, brother? What ship you going to sink?
I don't think this is going to come to much of anybody's surprise, but it's going to be Smolensk.
Okay.
I consider that to be probably the most broken ship Wargaming has ever made. They're trying to top it off now with another thing that spits torpedoes as fast as Smolensk spits guns, but yeah.
Well, we can get around to sinking that at a future time, perhaps. But
yeah.
Well, the Smolensk has definitely been one of the prime suspects in. God, this is episode 56, I think now. It's definitely the number one sink between that Stalingrad and Hakuryu. I think fewer people are sinking the Hakuryu now, but I think that's just because they're starting to hate the MVR and the FDR even more. But well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's Smolensk from Flambass. So. This is what I'm really excited about. What I'm really excited about is I want to talk to you about something that should be very near and dear to your heart. And that is three simple words: fun and engaging. Now, so we already talked about, Borla and I asked you about, when does this stop being in fun for you? What's it like to do this for a living and all that? But it occurs to me that for many of there are certain positions in the community, and not even just the Warships community, but any game community, where you sort of start to elevate beyond just being a player, and you suddenly sort of take more responsibility, and you sort of take more, you take more effect over the community itself. I would say clan leaders do that, as Borla's been on this before and talked about his own clan. But you sort of start to play the game of clans in that regard. But for streamers and influencers in general, for folks who make content, you sort of almost become a company in and of yourself in that regard, because it does turn into a business. So, with that in mind, obviously the motto from Wargaming is almost always fun and engaging. And I'd like to really, if you will, sort of break down, like, what the hell does that mean? What does it mean to a player? What does it mean to a content creator? And then, even let's speculate a little bit on what does that mean for the company. Is it really cynical? What have you? I talk too much. What do you think?
It's a good question, but it's not a question you can just easily and simply answer, I would say. If we take a look, I can't really say. I can't point a point in time, in history, but if we take a look in the history of games, games are made to have fun. You are supposed to be having fun while playing games. It literally involves words playing and games. And it's a lot easier to understand what those words mean if you go out of the virtual world. Like, you go outside, play with friends, do something, have fun. I think we have entered in this crazy time where games are going professional, which is amazing, but it's also like a curse, because very quickly you go from having fun in the game to wanting to get a lot more engaged with the game. You want to go from, oh, this is fantastic, look at the sounds, look at the splashes of the water, look at the shells, look at this, look at that, to I don't want to get hit by this, I don't want to get hit by that, you can't touch me, don't look at me, I'm going to kill that guy, I'm going to destroy that ship, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be best, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. Statistics. The second you start looking into statistics, the game kind of stops being fun. It is amazing how quickly what you're doing every day and it's fun can turn into like an anger management, literally. Um, Now I know that you're never supposed to stop trying to get better, and you're always should be striving to go better. But the problem is when you take it a bit far, when you start looking literally into stats, and start your main focus starts being how to make the numbers go bigger. Then you don't actually enjoy the game anymore. You stop kind of having fun, and there's just so much you can pump the numbers, because the bigger the numbers are, the bigger you want them to be, but also the bigger they are, the harder it is to maintain it. One of the reasons why people always say it's not the hardest part to become a champion, it's the hardest part to maintain the championship. Like, you
Right.
can reach it at some point, but to be there and stay there, now that takes 5 times more dedication. So games should be about fun, and I'm sure to a certain degree you meant, okay, but what may be fun for you might not be fun for others. Because if it's fun to take 3 ships into a division, which is already a failed division, for example, and then you just YOLO and then say GG, that was fun. Yeah, okay, I'm sure you had fun for your 5 minutes, but your team is now 9 versus 12, for example, and they're not going to have fun. Not necessarily, but they're probably going to have a hard time and not going to be very pleased. So you should always be a bit considerate. What do you consider fun in a multiplayer game? As for the wargaming's fun and engaging, I mean, it definitely turned into a meme long time ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many other companies actually do this, but wargaming definitely takes a lot of stuff that people complain about, and then they kind of embrace it and turn it into a meme. And then before people even realize it, they're part of the joke. It's kind of, you're trying to say, oh, this is so fun and engaging. And before you know it, instead of complaining, everybody's just using it as a joke. They're kind of transforming it from something that's originally supposed to mean fun and engaging, but it's sarcastic. They're kind of bringing it back into positivity by making a meme out of it. There's a lot of things that are not fun nor engaging about the game. There's a multiple mechanics that should probably be changed, at least in my opinion.
So can I narrow it down a little bit? Aside from me sending Boggzy huge bribes to allow me to co-host, I also try to do some homework, when he tells me who we're going to have and who we're going to interview. And I was watching your stream yesterday, and you were playing Tarkov, which a lot of Warships players play. A lot of my buddies play. A lot of guys in my clan play. Okay. And I heard you mention yesterday that you were very frustrated and didn't want to play Warships or even think about Warships yesterday, which we've all had that in our head at times and taken days off or time off. Like, can you share what either that frustration was, or in general, what are the 1 or 2 things that cause you to have the most frustration? I'm guessing some of them are overlap with the same things we deal with.
Yeah, it's a couple of things. I've been playing ships since it was in closed beta, which was like 5 years ago or so. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a long time ago. And I've been playing it every single day for those past 5 years, almost every single day. You know how there's a saying that you can't know and believe in something in the same time? Because if you know it, you don't have to believe in it. There's kind of it's a philosophical thing to say, but if you think about it, it's true. If you have a hobby, you have a hobby because you like it, right? And you are more
Sure.
than allowed to stop when it stops being fun. It's not your job. But
Yeah.
when you make your hobby a job, now you kind of have to start. You kind of are not allowed to stop, and you have to start doing it professionally. The more you turn it into, the more you turn it into a job, the less it's actually a hobby. And if it was just a hobby, you would just stop when it stops being fun. But when it's your job, even when there's moments that are not fun, you can't just stop. You can't just quit, right? I mean, sure, you can quit a job, but that has a lot bigger repercussions than simply stopping with a hobby. Um, so that's one of the problems that comes. The second problem is the most of my community is built around World of Warships, and there are two factors that have to align with each other for people to watch my channel. One of them, it has to be World of Warships, and two, it has to be me streaming World of Warships, because people are here for this combination of me and ships. If you take ships out of the equation, you took what they want to watch. If you take me out of the equation and put someone else in my chair, you took who they want to watch. And then you lose like 2/3 of your your viewership, 3/4 even. This is not just me. This is pretty much every streamer in the world, unless they build their community on variety.
Sure.
And that's what I've been trying to kind of branch out in the past year or two. I've been trying to devote like a lot of time to streaming other games that I would simply play off stream. But now I'm trying to play them on stream, because if I'm going to play them, I might as well stream them. And I don't want to be stuck in one game. I'm
Yeah.
sure you know who Jingles is,
Yes,
and I'm
sure.
sure you've watched some of his videos, and he's mentioned it a billion times. Don't put all your eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
because if anything happens to the game, what then? If your whole community is there for just those two things, and you take one of those things out, most of them will go. So I've been trying to branch out into variety streaming as much as I can, and I don't want to be tied to just one game. But I can't exactly quit ships, and even if I could, I would probably keep coming back, because it would stop feeling like a job and it would start feeling like a hobby, like you have a choice, and that it's much easier and more relaxing to come back to it, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like that really actually starts to touch on one of the things I wrote down here as a question, which was the notion of games nowadays are, I feel like they're designed for that reason. They are constant things that draw you back. I mean, there's teams of marketers that are involved in game design to say, hey, this is how, even if someone steps away from the game for a day or two, here are the ways that you drag them back and that they want to come back and play it. And this is, I mean, you said it a little bit, that the whole world of gaming has changed to the point where there are now careers built out of just playing these games. Like, I'm 35. I remember when, my first game system was an 8-bit Nintendo that had Super Mario Brothers on it. And it was like a plastic cartridge, the size of a piece of toast, was $60. And that was the extent of your relationship with Nintendo. Like, that was it. You buy the piece of plastic, you play the game until the tiny little silicone pieces die, and that's it. But now
you blew in them. You blew in them.
Yeah, you blow on the cartridge to make sure that's the extent of customer service. Is have you tried blowing on it? So all the Zoomers just went, "What the hell is he talking about?" Obviously, the relationship between a game company and its customer is much more fluid, and it's much more persistent now than it used to be. You don't just go to the store, buy a cartridge, play the game with your buddies, and that's it. Now you have like a direct sort of, not line of communication, but you have a direct relationship with a gaming company. So I kind of want to know, from your perspective, what do you think is the responsibility of a game company that has this relationship with its player base and its customers, because that's what we are. Like, let's be realistic. We're customers, but we're customers they sort of need to keep around so that we keep being customers and we don't stop being customers. So what exactly do you think is the sort of responsibility of a game company nowadays? And we could just use Wargaming as an example since we're talking about chips, but what do you think is their responsibility to a player base? How much of it's business? How much of it is that relationship? What do you think?
I would say that their only responsibility is to be as fair as possible. Like, looking at it from just a stone cold blooded point of view, completely unbiased or anything. The only responsibility that they have is, I mean, don't commit any frauds or cheats or screw your player base or certain individual. Looking at it from a human point of view and the whole interaction and stuff, they probably, it's kind of hard to say owe you. I'm not sure they actually owe you anything, but if you want to use that word, sure, they probably owe you a hell of a lot more. Since we're talking about wargaming, and they had numerous PR problems.
You mean like with the PR?
Yeah,
PR problem with the PR.
Pun intended, I guess. The thing is that we as community contributors always try to approach them and tell them, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. I personally like or dislike this, but this is a good or a bad idea. This is something you should, this is something you shouldn't do. But at the end of the day, they don't need us, and they don't have to listen to us. Very often you will hear Wargaming say, we value your feedback. We closely read and do everything, and then we make decisions upon it. I'm sure I'm not the only one who doesn't feel like those words stick, more often than not, I would say. And to a certain extent, it's very easy to stray in an area where you give yourself the right that they have to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for you as an individual, they don't. It's their game. They're the company. They can do whatever the hell they want. But you kind of feel entitled because you have given so much of yourself, of your time, and time is money, plus the money on top of that, to this game, that as its customer, you feel that they owe you certain things. They kind of do and they kind of don't. Certainly from a legal standpoint of view, they don't owe you anything, but from a moral point of view and from sort of a half business point of view, they should definitely care what you have to say. One of the major problems that we have with World of Warships and its balance, there's like two major fields. One is balancing issue, and one is like public relations issue. In terms of public relations, they were horrible before. They really had no idea how to package what they want to sell. They had problems with translations, completely different cultures clashing together and not understanding each other and stuff like that. We still have this, but it's less and less. But they still have really brilliant moves. In terms of balance, they have a completely different view of the game and where they want to take it in comparison where the rest of us wants to take it. And unfortunately, it turns out that the player base is to blame. And you, me, and anybody else, we are the player base. But if the player base is not very skillful on average, then you mostly enjoy a game that you can have fun in, and you have fun doing relatively good in a game, correct?
Right.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're not doing very good at a game, you're probably not having a lot of fun. you're probably not going to play the game. Now, what can a company do for you to have more fun at a game? They can take a modern soldier with a modern automatic rifle and brand new armor and a helmet and a thermal scopes and give it to you and send you to First World War in time. And you're probably going to have more fun than as a regular soldier that's participating armed with a bolt action rifle, no armor, no thermals, no zoom, nothing, right? You're definitely going to be more powerful in that time than any other soldier, which means you're going to be more successful, which means you're going to have more fun. So I think that is literally the problem that's kind of been happening to World of Warships, because World of Warships is not going towards the competitive scene. Wargaming has stated multiple times that they do not see this game as part of an esports, and I think they're very much aware that there's way too much RNG, which is their fault. They're the ones introducing it, and they keep making it worse and worse and more RNG dependent. But that's another topic. So they're not striving towards competitive. So balance is a
So let me ask you this: Can I?
discussable thing? You know, it kind of comes down to how do you really look at the balance. And just one more sentence to kind of finish this is, if you don't go towards competitive and pro gaming and esports and money and balance, then you can balance your game the way that you want to. And if you want the majority of your player base to have fun, and majority of your player base is under average in performance, you're going to start making products that are going to be so powerful that a below average player can have an average result in them. Which means if you give those products to good players above average, they're going to be making really good results. And that's breaking the actual balance of the game, and that's pushing the game's health into a very bad state. My opinion is that this has been happening for a long time now in World of Warships, and Wargaming is literally making the game as easy as possible. Everything that you had to learn before is now simply given to you. Most of the things that you had to work really hard to learn is now right there on display. Everything is there for the taking. You have to put in minimum energy and time to actually overcome any obstacle, because it's simply just given to you. It's a lot easier, and that is pushing us out of balance. We're starting to, well, we've been having the game, in my opinion, for a long time now, very, very unbalanced and broken, and that so-called natural power creep is insane, because we have to give products to under average players that they're so powerful in their hands that they can have fun. And I think that's the problem. Now, I hope a regular player, if he's below average, and most, according to statistics, most people are, doesn't get insulted by this. This is simply talking statistics and my opinion on how the whole thing works.
So you think that adding more RNG into the game, such as the cyclones, the storms, putting those in what are supposedly competitive modes like clan battles and things like that, are a way for wargaming to make it easier on people with less skill and make them feel like they're having success, because the RNG balances things out and takes away advantages skilled players may have?
Yeah. If you have, for example, very simple, if you need to put your mouse on a dot on a white sheet of paper, and there's a black dot, and you need to put your mouse there in a half a second, you're gonna miss a lot of times, right? You're trying to click that as fast as you can, but it's so small, it's very hard. Really good players are going to practice, and they're going to get it really quickly, or not very quickly, but they're going to be pretty good at it. Bad players are going to try a couple of times, they're going to fail, screw this. But if you suddenly make your mouse the size of a fist, and you give them half a second, you give them a half a second to put that fist on top of that dot, they're going to do it. Now, this is a pretty radical, Jesus, what's the word?
illustration or
Example?
Yeah, example. It's a pretty radical, extreme example, but that's how I like to explain things to people. Because if you give them the most extreme, then they kind of understand the point. So that's what I think wargaming is doing. If you introduce RNG, then for me and for that guy, we're going to be equally successful. Me as a good player, I certainly won't have a problem putting a fist on a dot, and a bad player is going to probably not have a hard time putting a fist on a dot. But
it's going to be a smaller challenge than it was before.
Yeah, but now, if that fist has an RNG, and when you put it over a dot, it's very questionable, did you actually hit the dot or not? Because now there's RNG. Yes, your fist went over the dot. Yes, your reticle is aiming at the ship. But let's say there's 100 points where your fist can touch the dot. 50 of them are void. So you're kind of luck. Did you actually connect those invisible points with the dot or not? And neither you nor the good player know which of these 50 points of 100 are actually void and which are not. And now you have that RNG. So as a good player, you took away my chance to put a really small mouse on a really small dot and prove it to you that I'm going to, connect it and that could be a kill. And you're making it much easier for a bad player with the same RNG. The more RNG, the more skill becomes questionable. So you're basically taking away from good players and you're leveling it with the bad ones. And that's what a lot of people have a problem with in World of Warships, because you can have a broadsiding cruiser and you're in a battleship, you unleash 12 guns on him from any distance. In World of Warships, it doesn't even matter if it's a kilometer or 20 kilometers. He's fully broadsiding, you unleash your full volley, it's a perfect aim, and this Persian just laughs.
Yeah.
You see the shells in the air way before they reach the target, and you're already face bombing. You're like, this is not gonna happen.
I feel
There's
like you're
no
specifically describing my experience with the Kansas, because I mean, I'm just seriously like, I just for the lulz, I took two buddies out in a triple Kansas diff, which again, don't at me. I'm not suggesting you do that. It's a horrible thing to do, not only to yourself but also your teammates. But I mean, at 9 kilometers, I fire a full volley of 12 shells at a broadside Musashi, and I don't hit a single shell with 12 406s at 10 kilometers. And I just went, why? Who thinks this was a good idea? And I don't mean to, specifically go after wargaming in that, but it's like, to me, bad Sigma is the most clear iteration of RNG sort of making the experience intolerable. It sounds like that's sort of where you're going with that. What was that, Borla?
I personally didn't have the privilege of playing Kansas yet, because when it was in testing, I'm sure you guys know that the rules within the CC community has kind of changed, and how much we get to test or don't. Basically, you're not allowed to produce any YouTube content or stream it or share any of your experience while playing it off stream on stream.
Right.
You're allowed to do it off stream, but then you're not allowed to share any of that on stream until the NDA is done. When the NDA is done, they're pretty much released anyway. So considering I'm already giving my entire time and my entire life to streaming, YouTubing, and mostly World of Warships, when I'm done, the last thing I want to do is go play more ships, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
I certainly do not lack the fix that day anymore. I already had more than I need. So I didn't get to test it yet. I played Minnesota, but I didn't need to play either of the three, Kansas, Minnesota, or Vermont, to know that those ships are going to be an absolute disaster for the whole fun part of the game. The slowest ship with the longest reload, no armor, gets pinned by everything. I've met a couple of Kansases and Minnesotas, and they eat damage like candy, and it's really not a fun experience for the guy. But when you said about the RNG that you had a Kansas experience and it was horrible, 12 guns, 9 kilometers, full broadside, nothing. It's not just Kansas. I wish it was just one line or one ship, I had a broadsiding Atlanta in my Jean Bart, which is, of course, not the most accurate ship in the game, sure, but you have a light cruiser, fully broadsiding. It was on 7-ish kilometers. There's even a clip of this. He's stationary. And there's something very special about this game in stationary targets. I don't know why, but they seem to be the hardest ships to hit. And then, and this Atlanta is broadsiding. I shoot 8 guns, not a single one connects. I squeeze a reload booster, I shoot 8 guns, I get a ricochet. I'm like, dude, this is not okay. That guy, it's bad for 2 reasons. One, I'm getting punished as if I'm doing something wrong instead of getting rewarded for doing something right. And he is getting rewarded for doing something wrong and not getting punished for doing something wrong. So he's going to think it's okay to do that again.
He'll remember it the next 9 times.
Yeah, and I'm going to be pissed. So you're basically achieving a couple of really negative impacts on the players. One guy that should be rewarded is getting punished, which is unjust. And the other guy that should be punished is getting rewarded, and he's like, yay! Or he doesn't even realize. Maybe he was looking in the other direction. And he's going to do the same mistake again and again and again and again and again.
No,
So
I
no
understand
learning.
exactly where you're going with that. You'll see somebody do something wrong and it works one time, and so they forget the 9 times it didn't work and keep
Yeah.
repeating the one time it did. But so let me ask you a question, kind of to wrap things up based on some of the comments you just made. You know, the group that I run, we're not at the top of the heap, but we've been in the top 10 in North America in clan battles the last several seasons. We've had a team in the top 8 of COTS and last 3 times. Like we're competitive, we're competitive, and we are reasonably consistent. And we're full of guys who don't like the RNG with the cyclones and the things that you've talked about being introduced, and spend the time to try to get good and be competitive. What's your recommendation for players or clans as things move more towards RNG and more towards trying to make it easier on the players who don't spend the time and effort, or the clans who don't put in that extra training? Like, what do we do? How do we cope with that? You know, I'm a solution oriented guy. You have a problem. Okay, how can we mitigate it, or how can we overcome it? Like where would you go over the next year or 2 in this game if that's your perspective?
I'm afraid that there's not a really good answer to that, because I don't think there is much you can do, especially if you're already doing everything that you should be doing. I can tell you just one example of one thing that I started doing long time ago differently than I was doing when the game started. And it's literally a crucial mechanic in the game. And everybody was pointing at that to everybody else straight from the start. It was like a must know. Shoot at the waterline. That was years ago. Now, do not shoot the waterline. Every time I shoot the targets, I'm aiming slightly above the waterline. I don't care where their citadels are, because there was this transitioning period that I don't know how many people actually felt, but you used to shoot at the waterline and you would get citadels, and that was like the best part to shoot. Sure, some shells would fall short, some would go a bit high, but most should end in the middle. I don't know, have you noticed, but that doesn't seem to be the case for the longest period of time. Now the shells are just going too low or too high. So if I'm going to shoot the waterline and all my shells are going to fall short, I'm not going to achieve anything. If I shoot slightly high and the shells decide to go even higher, at least I'm going to get some overpens on the superstructure. If they hit exactly where I aimed, it's going to be penetrations with a potential of a citadel. If they go slightly lower, I'm going to get citadels.
Right. You split the difference, basically.
Yeah, it's like one of these weird things that there are just a byproduct of RNG and mechanics maybe not working properly, or something that happened. But you try to cope with it the best you can. You try to mitigate it, and you try to basically realize that, we're all affected by RNG, some more than others, I guess. That's just the RNG. But I'm afraid that at this moment where you kind of caught me on the spot, I really don't know what to tell you. What can you do to avoid RNG? I mean, I can
Right.
give you the private number of Conway, and you can make a big deposit
We'll talk about that
and
after
pray
the
for the
stream.
best, I guess. But that's about as good as it gets, I'm afraid.
Well, now that you've already told him you're the one that's given me his number, you might not want to do that.
Well, so you've obviously given us nearly an hour of your time now, and we're very grateful. So let me just wrap up with one last question, which is, you said you've been playing this for 5 years, and you are trying to branch out. I mean, where do you see yourself in the next 2 years? Next 2, 3, 1 year? Like, what's next for you?
Well, hopefully, considering the channels do grow and more people watch, and as they watch ships, more and more people watch some other things as well, which is very nice. When I started playing other games, I would have like 80 viewers, 100. Now I can have already between 400 and 600 people watching me play other games, where people that, for example, main the World of Warships as the streamers, they get barely those numbers playing their main game. So I'm happy about that, and hopefully in the next year or two, that would be like my next goal, my next sort of a dream. Because currently, for a while now, I was stuck in a place where I kind of achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I
Yeah.
was lacking a goal. I was like, I could have never dreamt that I would be even here 3 years ago. My wildest imaginations were maybe half of where I am. So the dream now is to be able to separate myself from just one game. So in a year or two, I'm hoping that I might have the player base, the viewer base, that's in terms of numbers, that are watching me now play ships, watching me play anything. That I can
Diversify
have
that
like,
portfolio, huh?
yeah, that I can pretty much have at least, I don't know, 1,000 people, no matter what I play, what I stream, because they're there for you and the content you create, and not just this one game and you. So I'm
Right.
trying to take. I clearly can't take myself out of the formula that I told you about, but I can try and take the game out and replace it with something else. Um, because you need a break. You can't just play one thing every day, all the time. At one point, it's going to stop being fun. It's going to start being more and more frustrating. And then you need to come up with ways on what to do, how to cope with it. And I've learned over the past few years that simply playing another game is the best refresher there is. So, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Makes sense to me, brother. Well, that does it for me. And once again, thank you for giving us your time. We're going to include links down in the description below the podcast here. And if you're watching it on YouTube, it'll be in the description below as well. To as much of Flambass's content and media and social media and whatnot, his Twitch stream, obviously, YouTube channel, all that. I'll get a list from him when we're done here, and we'll put it all in there. Please go check him out. And Flambass, thank you. Thank you very much. This was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It's kind of nice to talk about some things that you don't get to talk about every day. Thank you for having me.
No, this has been very enjoyable. I appreciate you being open with us. This was really nice.
Thanks for
You're
bringing your cat, too, man. Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you all very much for listening. Again, Flambass's info will be down in the bottom. Please check him out. And thank you all for listening.